The office that bore my nameplate, the one reserved for the executive vice president, had been handed over to a new intern. By my wife, Elena. I found out through a screenshot sent by my assistant, Grant. It was a photo posted on Instagram by the intern himself, Arlo. He'd captioned it, "Grateful for Ms. Fairchild's trust and mentorship. I'll do my best to live up to this opportunity." In the picture, the office layout had been completely rearranged. My awards, gone. Every last one. I forwarded the post to Elena without comment. Just one question. Care to explain? Why is my private office being used by an intern? She replied with a voice memo. Her words were slow, slightly slurred. She'd been drinking. "Sweetheart, it's just an office. You're not really using it anymore, are you?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "You have 10 minutes. I want it restored. Exactly as it was." She didn't reply. But 2 minutes later, the company's most critical contract, our crown jewel, collapsed without warning. That was all I needed. If someone wants to test my authority, I'll make sure Fairchild Holdings doesn't survive the lesson. Elena's calls came in one after another, relentless. I let the first 4 ring out. Picked up on the 5th. Her voice exploded through the receiver. "Declan, have you completely lost your mind? That project was worth $50 million. You know the product launch is next week. Pulling the plug now will destroy the company. Over a goddamn office? Are you serious? 5 years of marriage." And this was the first time she'd ever raised her voice at me, for another man. I took a slow sip of whiskey, let it burn its way down my throat. The bitterness was familiar. Almost comforting. "It's not about the office," I said quietly. "Elena, I want everything back the way it was. The layout. The medals. Every single one of them in their proper place. Or the company loses a hell of a lot more." There was a pause. Just a few seconds. But enough to tell me she understood. "You've got 5 minutes. I ended the call without waiting for an answer. 2 minutes later, a message came through. A photo. The office, mine, restored to perfection. Every item back in its rightful place. I forwarded the image to the former project director, rescinding the termination order without delay. Then, I sent Elena a picture of my own. It showed her study. Completely cleared out. Every piece of furniture, every file, every curated item, gone. Attached was a second photo. The shattered remains of her latest acquisition, that prized antique she just outbid a roomful of collectors for. "This is your punishment," I wrote. "You know my temper. There won't be a second warning." Elena didn't reply. I knew she was angry. But I was furious. Our marriage had never been about love. It began as a strategic alliance, 2 corporations, 2 family legacies, 1 carefully negotiated merger. 5 years ago, she needed Remington Global's overseas distribution network. I needed Fairchild Holdings' Brookhaven City manufacturing campus. A business arrangement disguised as a wedding. Mutually beneficial. Entirely calculated. "We'll support each other professionally," she said, the night before we signed the papers. Her fingers wrapped around mine, her voice clear and sincere. "And I promise, as your wife, I'll trust you, and respect you." I remember nodding. Offering her a measured smile. "I appreciate your honesty," I said. "Here's to a successful partnership." In 5 years, we went from strangers to familiar partners. From mutual respect to quiet reliance. Then came warmth, and love. We'd shared countless nights together, worn out from back-to-back business functions, collapsing into each other's arms as the city lights faded. And this year, we finally had a child. Henry. He was the truest proof of what we'd built together. Proof, I thought, that what we had was real. Strong. Unbreakable. But now, Arlo's presence had cracked the foundation we spent 5 years laying. Every bit of trust and unspoken understanding, shattered. Elena didn't come home that night. I knew exactly what she was doing, expressing her rage and disappointment the only way she knew how. The next morning, I peeled off the bandages from my leg and headed straight to the office. The moment I stepped through the lobby, heads turned. Staff exchanged looks, some shocked, some awkwardly avoiding my gaze, then quickly nodded their greetings. "Mr. Remington?" One of the young receptionists hurried toward me, brows furrowed in concern. "We thought you were still recovering. Are you sure you should be here?" "There are things I need to handle personally," I said, my voice calm but clipped. With a brief nod, I made my way to the top floor, the executive suite. But as soon as the elevator doors slid open, I heard laughter. Elena's. It floated down the hallway from her office, light, familiar, infuriating. Through the narrow crack of her half-open door, I saw Arlo sitting beside her. Close. Too close. Elena's eyes sparkled with warmth, so unlike the cold, distant tone she usually reserved for assistants and junior staff. She never let anyone linger in her office, not even department heads. Not unless it was me. And she certainly never smiled like that. But now, she and Arlo were seated impossibly close. No space between them. No hesitation in their ease. Their laughter filled the room like a private language. He was wearing a luxury suit, sharp lines, perfect fit, unmistakably custom. I recognized it instantly. It was the same design I'd been eyeing for weeks. The same one Elena had mentioned she'd ordered for me as a surprise. Limited edition. Only 5 ever made. And now, one was draped over a 20-something intern like it meant nothing. I stepped through the door. The laughter stopped cold. Elena's smile froze mid-curve. "What are you doing here?" she asked, voice brittle with shock. Arlo scrambled to his feet, quickly composing himself into a polite facade. "Mr. Remington, sir. I heard about your surgery. Shouldn't you be resting at home? We weren't expecting you." I let out a low, bitter laugh. "And who exactly gave you permission to comment on my whereabouts?" My voice sliced through the air, sharp and unforgiving. "Who the hell let someone this clueless and disrespectful walk through our doors in the first place?" The color drained from Arlo's face. His mouth opened, then closed again, no words, just panic. "Take off that suit." The room dropped 10 degrees. Silence thundered between us. Arlo's eyes widened in disbelief. His lips trembled as if the words were caught somewhere between panic and denial. He looked to Elena for help, desperation plain in his gaze. I turned to her too, my stare cold as steel. "Care to explain why my suit is on him?" Elena's brows knit together, irritation edging her voice. "Because of what happened yesterday, Arlo's been the subject of gossip. I gave him a little compensation. That's all." She waved it off like it was trivial. "It's just a suit. I'll order you a better one." "Compensation?" I let out a low, cutting laugh. "Sure, maybe a single suit doesn't matter to us. But that one happens to be a limited edition couture piece, only 5 in the world." My eyes snapped back to Arlo. "And who the hell do you think he is to wear something like that? Besides, he brought this on himself. Yesterday was a consequence of forgetting his place. Actions have consequences." Then I turned back to her. Voice low, cold, deliberate. "Elena, have you forgotten your place too? Forgotten who I am? Who gave you the right to hand out what's mine like party favors?" Arlo had gone ghost pale. His voice barely made it out of his mouth. I didn't know it was yours, sir." I'm sorry. Well, now you do. My tone dropped like a blade. Take it off. Now. When I cut Arlo off mid-sentence and refused to let it go, Elena snapped. Declan. That's enough. Don't make a scene, we have a meeting to prepare for. Something in me stilled. She never raised her voice to me. Not at the office. Not in front of others. But for Arlo, she broke that unspoken rule. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Arlo's shoulders ease. Just slightly. Relief. Because she defended him. Meeting? I asked, my voice low, sharp. Easton Group, she said, tugging at the sleeve of her blazer, irritation creeping into every syllable. We're heading there now. Arlo's been instrumental in prepping the proposal, I'm taking him with me. I arched a brow. Let out a dry, cutting laugh. Oh. I must have missed the memo where interns now advise on multi-million-dollar mergers. Must be quite the resume he's got, redefining executive protocol and all. Elena's expression darkened. She grabbed her bag and turned sharply to Arlo. Let's go. We're already behind schedule. As they brushed past me toward the door, Arlo, bold, stupid, or both, glanced back. And smirked. It was subtle, but it was there. That flicker of smug triumph in his eyes. That quiet little challenge. You just made a mistake, Elena. You chose your side. And now? So will I. Once they'd left, I pulled out my phone and dialed a private number. Easton Group's chairman. Mr. Easton himself. Hello, this is Declan. About the meeting Elena scheduled today. An hour later, Elena called me. She was livid. Practically screaming into the phone. Declan, what the hell are you trying to do? Mr. Easton humiliated Arlo in front of the entire room, called him a pretty boy. Said he was sleeping his way up. Then he turned on me. Said Fairchild Holdings wouldn't exist without you. Accused me of finding another man while you were recovering, called me ungrateful, disloyal. That was you, wasn't it? You put him up to this. I let out a quiet laugh. I don't control what other people say, Elena. People have eyes. They judge for themselves. Arlo couldn't take it. He walked out. The deal's dead. Are you happy now? Thrilled, actually. Actions have consequences. You two just got a taste of yours. I ended the call. And for the first time in days, the fire in my chest began to cool. Moments later, a message came in from Grant. The Arlo situation had spread across the entire company. Apparently, when he came back to the office, people were whispering. Staring. Pointing. They said it to his face. You're delusional. No talent, no spine, just dirty tricks and a pretty face. You think you can sleep your way to the top? Everything on Arlo's desk, files, pens, even his name tag, was dumped straight into the trash. He shouted himself hoarse, trying to defend his name. That's not who I am. You can't treat me like this. But no one listened. This was a corporate battlefield. No one sticks their neck out for an intern, especially not when it means crossing the executive vice president. People turned on him without hesitation. Because in places like this, when you fall, they don't look away. They push harder. I'd seen it happen too many times. Arlo was just the latest to learn the hard way. No credentials. No power. No allies. He thought a little attention from Elena could catapult him to the top. What a joke. Shame burning through him, Arlo submitted his resignation. Since he was never formally on board, HR didn't even blink, approved it instantly. No exit interview. No apology. Just gone. His downfall wasn't sabotage. It was arrogance. He reached for something that was never his, neither the position, nor the woman. She came home that night while I was putting Henry to sleep. Our son's cheeks were soft and round, his little nose and delicate brows nearly identical to Elena's. She stood silently in the nursery doorway, arms crossed, eyes stormy, but her voice was kept deliberately low. Arlo didn't do anything wrong. He's just a hard-working kid trying to prove himself. And because of you, he's lost his job, his reputation's in pieces. You throwing a tantrum like some entitled prince, where's the line, Declan? I shot her a look and motioned for silence. Then gently laid Henry down in the crib, pulling the blanket over his tiny body. Only after I closed the door behind us did I speak. Elena. Let me say it again. I didn't tell anyone to humiliate Arlo or force him to quit. I wanted to believe it didn't matter. That she'd cool off, see reason. But that fury in her eyes, that doubt, cut deeper than anything she'd said aloud. It made something shift inside me. Be honest with yourself, I said quietly. How many rules did you bend for him? How many lines did you cross and pretend not to see? It's your indulgence, your silence, that gave him the illusion he could reach for something that was never his. Her hands clenched at her sides, voice rising. Nothing happened between me and Arlo. Elena's voice cracked as she fired back. You call it innocent? Then why did you give him something that was meant for me? Why did you let him move into your office? Don't forget, your last assistant wasn't even allowed to bring a chair into that office without your permission. But for Arlo? You broke every rule. Over and over. And now you're turning on me? I stepped in closer, towering over her. My voice dropped to a slow, deliberate rhythm. Elena, I'll admit it, I do care about you. If I didn't, I wouldn't have married you. Wouldn't have let you carry my child. But you also know this, there's no room in my life for betrayal. Not even a trace. Not in action. Not in thought. Not in silence. If you ever, cross that line, even emotionally, even subtly, I won't hesitate to find someone else to raise my son. Her face turned to stone, color draining from her cheeks. Without a word, she turned sharply and stormed toward the guest room. But I knew how this would end. It always ended the same way. She'd cool off. Regain her composure. And by morning, we'd reset. That was the silent agreement we'd operated under for 5 years. Disagreements over work. Over family. Over strategy. But this was the first time the fracture came from something else. From something messier. Human. Desire. Jealousy. Possession. The first time. And the last. Early the next morning, Elena's phone buzzed on the nightstand. Arlo. His name flashed across the screen. She hesitated. Just for a second. Then answered. His voice spilled through the speaker, cracked and breathless. Ms. Fairchild. I don't know what to do. Elena's brow furrowed. Her voice softened instinctively. Slow down. Tell me what happened. They're smearing me online. His voice trembled with panic. My photos are everywhere, people calling me names, saying I'm some boy toy who slept his way up the ladder. I'm scared. I haven't left my apartment since yesterday. I don't know what to do. His words dissolved into shallow sobs, barely contained. Elena's expression darkened, her jaw tightening. When she looked at me, her eyes were blazing. Stay where you are, she said into the phone, her tone fierce and protective. Don't go outside. I'll handle this. I didn't say a word. But we both knew what was happening. Arlo had already made enemies, plenty of them. Word of his fallout with me had circulated fast. I didn't need to lift a finger. The moment others realized he'd crossed me, they'd acted on their own. Loyalty in this world is transactional, and public humiliation is just another currency. I'd seen the posts that morning. The online backlash wasn't nearly as brutal as Arlo made it sound. But that was the point. He knew how to look fragile. How to play the part of the wounded boy with nowhere to run. And Elena, predictably, took the bait. Her instinct to protect, triggered, weaponized. Elena's fury exploded the moment the call ended. She slammed her phone down on the table, eyes burning red, voice shaking with rage. "Declan, what the hell is wrong with you? Arlo's already out of the company. Out of our lives. Why are you still going after him? You've become cruel. Vindictive. Abusing your power just because you wear the CEO's crown." I didn't flinch. I slammed my coffee mug onto the table with equal force, the ceramic clatter sharp and final. "I told you, I haven't done a damn thing. Everyone in the company knows he crossed me. That's all it takes. You think I need to lift a finger? Besides," I said, my voice turning cold, razor-edged. "When have you ever known me to do something and not own it? The real problem here, Elena, is that you've questioned me, again and again, for his sake. A damn in turn. And frankly?" I met her eyes with quiet fury. "You sound like someone who's lost her head over him." Her face turned to stone, then flushed with fury. She spun on her heel and stormed off, slamming the door behind her so hard it echoed down the hall. I didn't chase her. Instead, I slowly wiped the corner of my mouth with a napkin. Calm. Composed. But behind that stillness, in the quiet aftermath of her exit, was something colder. Disappointment. That afternoon, I was casually scrolling through Twitter. And then I noticed something strange. All the dirt on Arlo, every rumor, every meme, every nasty comment, had vanished. In its place? A polished, corporate statement from Fairchild Holdings. Mr. Arlo Keegan is an exceptionally capable young professional whose position at Fairchild Holdings is earned through merit and excellence. The company does not tolerate malicious defamation of its employees. We are actively pursuing legal action against those responsible for spreading false information online. A notification lit up on my phone. It was a message from Grant. "Mr. Remington, just a heads up. Ms. Fairchild didn't just have legal issue a statement. She just announced, in front of the entire board, that Arlo is returning to Fairchild Holdings effective immediately. He'll be serving as her chief executive assistant. She said anyone who spreads rumors about him again is out, no exceptions. People are already whispering. Everyone's saying something's going on between them." I felt something tighten in my chest. Then another message came in, this time a screenshot. Arlo's latest Instagram post. "The storms of the workplace have passed. Real gold stands the test of fire. I'm grateful my hard work was recognized. Thank you, Ms. Fairchild, for believing in my ability. I'll do my best to support you from here on out." Beneath it, a photo of his official appointment letter. Chief Executive Assistant to the President of Fairchild Holdings. Salary, Executive Tier. Equal to a Vice President. I stared at the screen. At his smug little caption. At his face, glowing with victory. Then I hurled the phone across the room, watching it crash against the edge of the table with a sickening crack. My eyes narrowed, burning with rage. "So this is how far you're willing to go, Elena." Not long after, Elena came home to grab a file. She didn't spare me a glance. Just walked straight past me, heels clicking against the floor, up the stairs and into the study. In and out, like I wasn't even there. I tapped my fingers against the edge of the coffee table. Calm. Controlled. Then spoke. "You're not even going to look at me?" She froze mid-step. Then turned, her eyes cold, sharp. Arlo was nothing but a hard-working employee. And he got driven out of this company, out of his life, because of you. Because of your paranoia. Your ego. He was slandered, humiliated, and exiled. I'm simply correcting your mistake. What he has now is what he deserves. And if I told you to fire him again? She didn't hesitate. Then go ahead. Try it. Her voice rose, trembling with fury. I used to tolerate your abuse of power out of respect for you, as my husband. I let you bulldoze over people, crush whoever got in your way. I kept quiet. But not this time. I won't sacrifice Arlo just to make you feel powerful again. And I won't let you keep twisting everything until there's nothing left of the man I married. She turned and walked out, slamming the door behind her. The sound echoed through the walls of the house like a gunshot. And in that silence, as the echo died, so did something else. Whatever faith I had left in her. Gone. 5 years. 5 years of partnership, of carefully built trust, of marriage. All unraveling over a man who hadn't even been in her life for 15 days. I sat there on the couch, fury and heartbreak twisting inside me like wires pulled taut. The glass in my hand shattered with a sharp crack, shards slicing into my palm. Blood slipped between my fingers and dripped silently onto the floor. But I didn't flinch. I forced myself to breathe. To think. If Elena had chosen her side, if she was determined to stand behind Arlo, then I'd show her what it meant to challenge me. She wanted war? Fine. Let it begin. Decision made, I grabbed my phone and called Colin, my private attorney. He picked up almost immediately. Colin. I need you to draft a divorce agreement. Full asset split. Everything accounted for. Not a cent left vague. There was a beat of stunned silence on the other end. Then Colin's voice, cautious. Mr. Remington, are you sure? Divorce is. I said now. I want that agreement on my desk in 3 days. Understood. And, what about notifying Ms. Fairchild? Don't. This isn't a negotiation. I ended the call. Then turned to my laptop, logging into the secured server. Pulled up every document, every contract, every joint venture tied to Fairchild Holdings. If she thought she could play games behind my back, she clearly forgot who taught her the rules. 5 years of marriage. And in those 5 years, I'd handed Fairchild Holdings far too much, access, resources, protection, leverage. It was time to take all of it back. I sent a direct order to Remington Global's international headquarters. Notify all partner entities, effective immediately, suspend all ongoing collaborations with Fairchild Holdings. Reason? Say it's due to technical restructuring. Understood, Mr. Remington. The reply came sharp, immediate, unquestioning. That was the culture I'd built at Remington Global. Discipline. Loyalty. Execution, no room for hesitation. Next on my list, the elite technical teams we'd embedded inside Fairchild Holdings, our proprietary edge. I contacted HR personally. Pull them out. Every single one. Offer double salary if needed. They returned to Remington Global by the end of the week. The ripple effect was immediate. And it didn't go unnoticed. It took less than an hour for my father, Anthony, to call. The moment I answered, I didn't wait. I'm divorcing Elena. There was a brief pause on the other end. Then his voice, measured, steady, familiar. You've thought it through? Completely. Another pause. Then. All right. I won't ask for details. Your mother and I trust you. We support whatever you decide. Just remember, once you've made your move, don't hesitate. Remingtons don't do half measures. Within 2 days, I pulled out everything, quietly, cleanly, without a trace. Every account. Every shared asset. All funds moved under private protection. Elena had no idea. And while I dismantled the foundation beneath her feet, Arlo was busy performing on Instagram. Daily updates. Photos of him attending business events on Elena's arm. A new car. A luxury watch. A gleaming office. Always paired with the same sickly sweet caption. Grateful for Ms. Fairchild's continued mentorship. I only glanced once, on the first day. Then I blocked him. Trash like that didn't deserve a second look. I turned my attention fully to the launch of the new company. A clean slate. One I'd build without interference. Then, my phone rang. Elena. I let it ring once. Then answered. My father's birthday is today. He expects us at the estate. If you don't want to come, I'll go alone. Her tone was flat. Cold. Stripped of warmth. I glanced at the envelope on my desk, the divorce agreement, neatly signed and sealed. My lips curled into a faint smile. I'll be there. It was time. Time to bring it all to the surface. And end this once and for all. At exactly 7 p.m., I drove my Ferrari through the gates of the Fairchild family estate. The courtyard was brightly lit, soft golden light spilling from every window. Laughter and clinking glasses echoed faintly through the warm night air. At the entrance, Robert and Lillian, Elena's father and mother, stood waiting with a small cluster of family friends. As I stepped out of the car alone, a flicker of surprise crossed Robert's face. Where's Elena? I didn't blame them. In 5 years of marriage, this was the first time we hadn't arrived together. She said she'd be along shortly. They nodded, masking their curiosity with polite smiles, and ushered me inside. A butler handed me a glass of whiskey with reverent precision. I took it, sank into the leather sofa, and sipped slowly, calm, unreadable. Half an hour passed. Then the front door opened again. Elena walked in, fashionably late, of course. But what no one expected was the man trailing just behind her. Arlo. The room shifted. Conversation stalled. Eyebrows rose. Glasses paused midair. Robert's face darkened instantly. He stiffened, jaw locking as his eyes locked on Arlo. This is a family dinner. Why are you bringing strangers into my home? Elena's voice was cool, collected. Arlo is my chief executive assistant. We were finalizing a project, and I brought him along afterward. Robert's tone sharpened. This isn't a boardroom. This is a family event. Don't blur the lines. His voice rose slightly, firm and unmistakably commanding. Send him home. Arlo paled, visibly rattled. He turned to Elena, seeking refuge in her eyes, quietly pleading. That tactic worked, at least on Elena. She stepped forward immediately, her voice softening. Arlo's been working non-stop today. He hasn't even had dinner yet. Just let him stay. Robert's expression hardened, fury creeping into his tone. Declan's been busier than any of you, and you've never seen him drag his assistant here. This is a family dinner, not one of your damn corporate functions. Then, sharply. Butler. See him out. The butler froze, caught in the crossfire, eyes darting between Robert, Elena, and Arlo, unsure how to proceed. Arlo stood just behind Elena, saying nothing, but his gaze flicked toward me, lingering with a trace of smug satisfaction. That was the final crack. I'd had enough. Don't bother. My voice cut clean through the room. The argument stopped. I reached into my jacket, pulled out a crisp folder, and laid it flat on the coffee table in front of everyone. This is why I came tonight. A beat of silence. Then all eyes dropped to the bold lettering on the front cover. Divorce agreement. The entire room went still. No one spoke. Even the air seemed to tighten, like the house itself had been stunned into silence. Elena's face went ghost white. The bag in her hand slipped from her fingers and hit the floor with a dull thud. Her voice trembled. "Declan. You want a divorce? Are you out of your mind?" I didn't flinch. My gaze moved from her to Arlo, then back to her. "No," I said quietly. "I've never been clearer." Robert and Lillian rushed forward, alarmed. "Declan, come on now," Robert said, trying to steady the air. "This has to be a misunderstanding. Let's sit down and talk this through like family." "There's nothing more to say," I replied, firm. "My decision's made." Elena's voice cracked. "I'm not signing it." Her eyes glistened with defiance and disbelief. "Just because I appointed Arlo as my chief assistant? That's your reason for blowing up our marriage?" I met her gaze without blinking. "You know exactly why." My voice dropped into a deadly calm, each word measured, sharp. "I warned you. I gave you a chance. I never offer second chances, Elena. But I made an exception, for you. And you spat on it." I took a step closer, my tone turning colder. "You chose to parade that boy around and humiliate me, publicly. At home. At work. Tonight. You want to play games with my name, my legacy, my trust? Then prepare to lose." Gasps rippled through the room. Elena stood frozen, fists clenched, chest rising with uneven breaths. But she wouldn't sign. Not yet. And so, the line had been drawn. Lillian reached for my arm, her voice soft, pleading. "Declan, please. Just breathe, okay? Let's not rush into something irreversible. We can talk this through." I gently but firmly pulled away. "Lillian," I said with polite finality, "I've made my decision. And there's no walking it back." Then I turned to Elena. "You don't have to sign now. But if you don't, I'll see you in court." Without another word, I turned and walked out, leaving behind a room full of shocked silence, a shattered celebration, and a family scrambling to make sense of what had just happened. Now, I stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of my office, overlooking the city skyline. For the first time in weeks, I felt light. Unburdened. Grant stepped in, carrying a fresh report in his hand. "Mr. Remington," he said, barely able to contain his excitement. "We've received 30 more applications today, from Fairchild Holdings core personnel." He handed me the file with a slight grin. "That brings us to over 100 critical staff members we've pulled from them in just a few days. Their stock hit limit down the moment the market opened, 5th consecutive day. On top of that, multiple major projects have been frozen due to talent loss. Word in the market is, Fairchild Holdings is on the verge of collapse." I felt it, settling in my chest like cold steel. "Justice. Let me know when you're ready to continue. The reckoning is complete, but the empire is only beginning." I gave a slight nod. Everything was unfolding exactly as I'd predicted. Without Remington Global support, without the backbone of its technical teams, Fairchild Holdings was nothing more than a fish out of water, gasping, flailing, waiting to die. Grant lingered a moment longer, a flicker of amusement playing at his lips. "Oh, and one more thing, sir. Thought you'd find this entertaining." Apparently, Arlo made quite the speech at Fairchild's executive meeting. He proposed pivoting the company into tech development. Full restructure. He almost laughed. They greenlit the project. And it imploded almost immediately. Now the board's in chaos, the departments are cannibalizing each other, and no one knows who's actually in charge. I let out a cold, quiet chuckle. An intern trying to direct a technical division. How spectacularly arrogant. But none of it surprised me. Arlo was a hollow shell, pretty on the outside, utterly vacant within. No experience. No instinct. No grasp of real strategy. Elena had let emotion cloud her judgment. She bet her company on a boy who looked the part but had no idea how to play the game. Just then, my phone lit up on the desk. Elena. Again. Another call. I stared at the glowing screen, but didn't move. That was the 15th missed call from her today. Without a second thought, I blocked her number. I had no interest in her apologies. No appetite for her explanations. And absolutely no curiosity about how she was coping. Word had already reached me, after days of plummeting stock prices and paralyzed operations, she finally snapped out of her delusion. She fired Arlo. But it was too late. The damage was done. Fairchild Holdings had lost nearly half its market value. The brand, once respected, was now barely holding on. Later that afternoon, I got a call from security. "Mr. Remington, Miss Fairchild is in the lobby. She's insisting on seeing you." "Not interested." "Sir, she said she won't leave until you do." The guard's voice hesitated, unsure how to proceed. "Then let her stand," I said coolly. "Post someone nearby. Make sure she doesn't cause a scene." I hung up. Then returned to my work, focused, calm, untouched. How could she still not understand? It's over. All of it. That evening, my assistant sent me a brief message. Ms. Fairchild stood outside for nearly 2 hours. Eventually, security had to escort her out. I read it without reaction. Then set the phone down and turned the page in the folder I was reviewing. The next day, security called again. But this time, it wasn't Elena. It was Robert. I hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Have Grant bring him up." Whatever had passed between me and Elena, I still owed Robert and Lillian a certain level of respect. Over the years, they had treated me well. When Robert entered my office, he looked worn, eyes bloodshot, face drawn. He carried none of the usual gravitas that once made boardrooms go still when he entered. He didn't waste time. "I know Elena made mistakes," he said, voice low, weary. "But she sees that now. She regrets everything. Can't you, just this once, give her a second chance?" His eyes held a desperate kind of hope. I met his gaze, steady. "I respect you, Robert. Truly. But there's no going back. She knows she was wrong," he continued, "and she's willing to do anything to fix it. You were her husband, Declan, 5 years together. Doesn't that count for something?" I cut him off gently, but firmly. "You know better than anyone, some mistakes can't be undone." "She's fired Arlo," he said quickly, almost as if that alone would erase everything. "She regrets putting him in that position." "Firing Arlo doesn't fix this," I replied, voice turning colder. "Elena didn't just disrespect me, she shattered the foundation of what we built. She crossed a line I made very clear from the beginning." I stood, straightening the papers on my desk. I don't forgive betrayal. Not in business. Not in marriage. Not anywhere. I looked him in the eye, the words final. If she refuses to sign that divorce agreement, then I'll continue to break Fairchild Holdings down piece by piece, until there's nothing left. Silence hung in the air. And in that silence, Robert finally understood. Robert's face darkened. "I understand," he said quietly. "I'll speak to her. I'll make sure she signs." I gave a nod. "I'll take full custody of the child," I added. "But the Fairchilds will always be welcome to visit." It wasn't an easy thing to say to an aging man who had once welcomed me as a son. But I wouldn't bend, not on principle, not for sentiment. And certainly not to reopen a door that needed to stay closed. Robert exhaled, long and defeated. Then, slowly, turned and walked out, shoulders slumped, years older than when he'd arrived. 3 days later, the signed divorce agreement landed on my desk, delivered in silence, its weight heavier than the envelope it came in. Night had fallen. I wrapped up the final contract of the day, shut my laptop, and headed out of the building. The lobby was mostly empty. Quiet. Still. Until I saw the scene unfolding outside the revolving glass doors. A disheveled figure, wrinkled clothes, unkempt hair, frenzied eyes, struggled between 2 security guards. Arlo. He caught sight of me and instantly thrashed harder, trying to break free. Declan. His voice cracked like a whip through the air. This is all your fault. You ruined my career. You destroyed everything I had. I stopped a few feet away, keeping my distance. And looked down at him, expression unreadable, gaze steady. You seem to be confused about one thing. I spoke calmly, clearly, my words cutting deeper than any shout. You weren't fired because of me. You were fired because you're incompetent. All your so-called strategies. Half-digested garbage scraped from some online think piece. Riddled with flaws anyone with a functioning brain could see. Arlo's face flushed red, then drained pale, his rage flickering into something rawer, more exposed. I stepped forward, not physically, but with my voice. The only reason you ever became chief executive assistant at Fairchild Holdings was because Elena pitted you. You played the victim. Acted fragile. Manipulated her guilt. You're not a strategist. You're not a leader. You're a pretty face with no substance, just another boy who figured out how to climb by flattering women who should have known better. His fists clenched, eyes burning. I didn't stop. You lied to people. Stole from budgets. Buried your incompetence under excuses. And no one called you out, because you hid behind Elena. Because you knew she'd protect you. But do you really think that made you powerful? To me, you were never anything. Just a weak man in designer suits pretending to matter. You're not a threat. You're not a rival. You're a disgrace. And frankly, trash would be offended by the comparison. The blood drained from his face. His mouth twitched like he wanted to speak, but no words came. Because he knew. I'd spoken the one truth he'd never wanted to hear. Suddenly, Arlo lunged. Shut up. I'll kill you. He tore free from the guards, eyes wild, foam at the edge of his mouth as he charged straight at me. I didn't flinch. Not even a blink. Just as he was about to reach me, the guards tackled him hard, slamming him onto the marble floor with practiced force. I stepped forward, calm and deliberate. Pressed the sole of my shoe against his hand. Leaned in. Arlo, I said quietly, if you ever show your face in front of me again, I will ruin you. Not just publicly. Not just professionally. I'll end you so completely, they won't even remember your name. Killing you would be easier than stepping on an ant. So you better pray we never cross paths again. His body shook beneath me. Rage overtook reason. Declan, he screamed, you'll die a miserable death. I swear, I'll destroy you. The guards moved fast, hands over his mouth, dragging him out of the building like the broken thing he was. That night, the internet exploded. An anonymous account leaked a series of photos. There he was, Arlo, grinning like a fool at a private lounge, draped over several aging, overweight socialites, raising a glass with practiced charm and hollow eyes. Then came the video footage. Him caught on camera, slipping merchandise into a bag at a high-end retail store. Then screenshots. Old messages. Bank transfers from a college girlfriend. Proof of manipulation, lies, theft. It was a full character collapse. And I hadn't ordered a single piece of it. But I didn't need to. There were more than enough people desperate to earn my favor. People who knew what I liked. People who understood how the game is played. And in their enthusiasm, they'd done what I didn't have to. Leveraging his considerable influence, Robert quietly blacklisted Arlo across the entire industry. Every door slammed shut. No one would hire him. In the end, with nowhere else to go, Arlo returned to where it all began, the private club. Back to his old trade. They say he didn't last a month. His body gave out. Overworked, overused, forgotten. He died the same way he'd lived, chasing something he could never hold. As for me? Within 6 months of the divorce, I secured 3 landmark deals back-to-back. Remington Global's stock price doubled. Our market value skyrocketed. Business Weekly named me Entrepreneur of the Year, the most influential executive of his generation. Elena, with Robert's backing, began the long, uphill climb to rebuild Fairchild Holdings. Her name would still appear occasionally in the business sections, face thinner, eyes dulled, the fire replaced with something quieter. Something tired. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. My company now stood at the top of the industry. And the single, self-made CEO image made me a frequent feature in the press, and an object of fascination for more women than I could count. But my heart had long since shifted. All of it belonged to my work, and to Henry. He was 4 now, bright, curious, full of mischief and warmth. People often said he had my eyes, my smile. And they weren't wrong. After the divorce, I shifted everything, meetings, travel, timelines, so I could be there for him. I drove him to school every morning. Picked him up every afternoon. It became the part of my day I looked forward to most. In my office, I'd carved out a small corner just for him. A kid-sized table. A shelf overflowing with toys and action figures. The walls pinned with Henry's drawings, dragons, rockets, stick figures with huge smiles. It was his space. Whenever he dropped by, he knew he belonged. Daddy, he looked up from a coloring book one afternoon, eyes wide with innocence. When is Mommy coming to see me again? I glanced at the calendar on my phone. Your birthday's in 2 days. She'll probably bring you something special. Per the divorce agreement, Elena was allowed 2 supervised visits each month. 3 hours max. No extensions. And to her credit, she'd never missed a single one. Not once in 3 years. No matter how packed her schedule, she always showed up. Always on time. Always with a gift wrapped in ribbons and gilt. Trying, desperately, to make up for what she couldn't undo. I still felt sick whenever I thought of her. But for Henry's sake, I never interfered. A child deserves both parents, even when one of them no longer deserves you. In the background, Fairchild Holdings had started to stir again. Elena's relentless work had inched the company back from the brink. A slow, fragile recovery. But only because I allowed it. Fairchild Holdings was still breathing, for one reason alone. I no longer considered it worth crushing. Occasionally, our paths would cross at industry events. A brief nod. A silent acknowledgement. Nothing more. On Henry's 4th birthday, I hosted a small party at home, just a few of his friends, some balloons, and his favorite snacks. Our nanny helped with the decorations. That afternoon, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Elena standing there, holding a large gift wrapped in bright paper and too many ribbons. For his birthday, she said simply. I took the box, gave her a curt nod. I'll be back in exactly 3 hours. She nodded, eyes softening, watching me walk away with a look that lingered far longer than necessary. Over the past 3 years, she'd tried, subtly and not so subtly, to reopen the door that had been firmly shut. At conferences, she'd bring up our better days, in front of others, mentioning shared victories and laughter that no longer meant anything. After visitations, she'd linger. Try to stretch small talk into something more. Once, she even sent messages through mutual friends. Said she still loved me. Said she wanted to try again. I refused, every time, with quiet finality. Because some things, once shattered, can never be repaired. My life now? It's clean. Stable. Free. I have a thriving company. A joyful son. Peace. Compared to what that marriage once was, this life feels like air after drowning. I no longer live in reaction to the past. I've moved forward. And I'm never going back.